Okay, I don't like doing this. And then we have a 3-year-old. What happened? Stop, you guys, I'm nervous. Brought the contrast down just a little bit. I think it was until about 85 maybe. Hi, baby. You go by Daddy, okay? Please? I don't look into the camera, right? I just do my thing.
The following day.
Okay guys, quick intro. My name is Layla Trubeck from True Vision Studios. I'm co-owner with my husband and business partner Austin. We do photo and video here out of Michigan. Might have said that already. I handle all the photo editing and most of the photo. And real quick, just want to let you guys know that I still have a lot to learn and have been editing for almost 3 years now, and have learned some really cool steps and definitely love the mass and edits, but utilizing brushes is great, especially when you're in a pinch and you can't use off-camera flash. That's been very helpful too. So before I jump in and show you guys that, just thought I'd let you know a little background on me and why I use the brushes. I do use off-camera flash, but also really like to use the brushes because on wedding days, as you know, it gets crazy hectic and you can't always pull out a strobe at a beach or whatnot. So this actually works really well. So here we go. All right, so to this lovely image by Cheyenne Kimball from Maston Labs Community. She did a fantastic job with this picture. Ideally, yes, it'd be great to throw some flash a little bit on her, but that's not real life, as we know. So here we are going to learn some cool tips and tricks about using brushing. To save time, I'm going to go ahead and kind of teach you guys more of the brush techniques, and we'll quickly go through that. That way you're not watching this forever, because I don't like to be in front of a camera, and nobody has time to sit here and listen to me ramble on for forever. First thing, I guess I just wanted to say is I've only been editing for almost 3 years, and I still have a lot to learn. This is something that I have learned and I love, so I will share it with you since a lot of you asked. I'm just gonna go ahead and add Portra 160 to this image real quick. And I did all soft. I did my lens correction on to get rid of the vignetting, which helped right away. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and just jump right into the brushes. Grab a brush right here in the right-hand corner above your panel. And when you're going to be brushing and using this technique that I'm gonna show you, it's very important to make sure that the feather on your brush is all the way to 100 and that your flow is up at 100 for this. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna lift this exposure for this brush. I'm gonna do a preset brush from Visual Flow called Quick Dodge and Lift. I will explain all the settings on the brush first. So right now we're just learning about the brush. Make your brush pretty big here. I'm just using my mouse. You can use a Wacom tablet if you want to, or whatever kind of tablet. I do it sometimes, just depending on if I have a 3-year-old crawling over me while I'm editing, or if I actually have some more time to be a little more detailed. So go ahead and brush all over. It's okay if you spill out on the sky or rocks, because we're going to erase that mask later. So just brush real quick. I'm over there again. To bring up your mask, to see is O, the shortcut on the keyboard. There we go. So this is how you brush, and then if you hit Option, it brings the minus. Now, we want to make sure that when we're erasing, that our feather is all the way down to 0. And it's really important just to take your time as you're going. And even if you want to zoom into 1:1 and go ahead and erase. Sometimes Lightroom can get finicky and be really slow and lag. Seems to be working really well today. The more brushes you use definitely happens. So as you can see, I am going to take away everything from that's spilling outside the model here. It's a beautiful bride. And I already took too much off her hair. If you take too much like I did right here on her shoulder, that's gonna show dark and it's not gonna look good. So go ahead and brush on that with a heavy feather, take away, and just be really slow. Did it again. For the sake of time, I'm not gonna do this to the whole thing just because I want to kind of move through this quickly. I'll show you the other image that I already have done. So anyways, here we go. With the first brush is the Model O to take the mask off. I'm gonna click off my brush. I'm gonna bump the exposure of the picture up a little bit to like 0.65 here. And then I'll go ahead and explain. The second brush that I did was a little dodging and burning. So bring the shadows. I did bring the shadows up in the picture overall too. So I'll just do that first. Maybe bring the blacks up a little bit. Contrast on just a tad. All right, so I did another brush. I'm gonna actually do another quick dodge and lift just on her eyes. This is what I did next. Just because those are still pretty shadowed. I will explain this a little bit more later, but I do make sure you do a little bit more noise reduction because when you're bringing up shadows, you're gonna bring up all the noise too with that. All right, next brush, I did some dodging and burning here on her face. I wanted there to be dimension and not super flat. So that is what I did next is I just brought some of the exposure and shadows down here on her face. I make sure that my feather is pretty big here and that my flow is actually only at 50 because I don't want it to be like extremely visible. So I don't want it to just a little bit, just to kind of give some dimension there. I did warm her skin a little bit too. So we're gonna get a new brush. We're going to warm her skin a little bit and just her skin only. So you can just be careful with this. Again, just doing this quick so I'm sure that the warmth is spilling over elsewhere onto her dress and whatnot, but I only warmed up her skin a tad. Here, I think I just, the flow can be fine at 50, not 100, but you're just warming up her skin just a little bit. And then see, like as I'm zoomed in here, you can see that this is the original mask all over because I didn't take my time as bringing up exposure here, and we don't necessarily want to do that, but that's why it's important when you're getting your erase brush that you don't have a feather on there and you just really slowly and carefully go all the way around. The next brush we did is Fun. So let's make this to fit. We're gonna do our sky here. And we're just gonna make sure that your flow for this is 100. And go ahead and do your sky, brush your sky. Same technique. It's okay if it goes over the model because, excuse me, you are going to take away the brushing on her face here. So when I did the sky, I'll explain this a little bit more later too, but I did take the exposure down quite a bit. So those are the main brushes. I did one more brush here at the bottom. I warmed the foreground up a little bit also. And I then did a gradient filter here, and I actually darkened the bottom a little bit, just a tad by like 40-ish, just to have this pop more. And so that's why I did that. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the image that actually takes half an hour to edit, but for the sake of time, I thought I would just quickly go over the brushes that I did. So here's the image when it was all done, taking my time with the Portra 160 and all the brushes and tweaks that I did. And I'm just gonna show you without the brushes. And so this is just Portra and bumping up the exposure a little over a half a stop, and I brought the contrast down a little bit. And then as soon as I add all the brushes that I did, you get this. So this is without brushes, and this is with brushes. So H will bring up your, if you click your brush, H will bring up all the brushes. So here's the sky, and here is the eyes, and here is the big brush here. So if I just delete the brush off of her, this is how dark she would be if I didn't brush her and bring up the exposure, but just brush the sky and whatnot. So we'll undo that there. Again, here's the mask, so you can see, like when you zoom in close, like I'm pretty good at where I erased to make sure that was pretty precise. This is warming her, or this is the dodging and burning on the right side of her face there. And here's the warming up there, and here's my gradient filter down here. So let's just really quick go over the sets on the brushes that I use. So my brush, the first one, as you guys knew, was the model. I think that might be this one. And that was bringing the exposure up about 60, contrast minus 15. I raised the highlights 11, shadows I raised 40. The whites -8, blacks I lifted the blacks a touch, 8, and the clarity I brought 10, saturation 26. Since I'm bringing up the exposure, it's really important to bring some more color and saturation. It's just something I do. Maybe it's just my style, I don't know even where I learned that from. And then I just brought a little noise reduction into that, since the noise lives in the shadows and I'm bringing all those shadows up in the model. So that's what I did for her. And then the next one was for her eyes. I just did a quick dodge and lift for her eyes again. And then I warmed up her skin. I did 25 in the temperature, and because it's just something that I've learned, I took away, took the saturation down to -15 to warm up her skin, the contrast down by 5. So that was that. So that's just warming up her skin. The dodging and burning on the right side of her face. I brought the shadows back in for more dimension there. Took the exposure down by a stop, the contrast down a lot. Highlights, but remember with that, on the right side, my flow for my brush was not as much as the other ones. And here's the sky. So here's the sky. The sky settings where I brought the exposure down, 73, contrast I bumped up a little bit. I took the highlights down by 30. Shadows, I don't even know why it's 1, that's funny, it probably should just be zeroed out. But whites, I just bumped them down a little bit to -5. Blacks, I raised them a bit. 10, clarity, I did the sky clarity to 40. Dehaze 15, and I added 14 for saturation. Big thing here is tint. I like a lot of magenta in the sky. I kind of just think it looks cool. So here is, without, and here is back with magenta. I just kind of like it, and I cooled the sky down. So this is just stylistically. Some people like it warmer. I think it looks really good like that too. I just cooled it down just -8. That was it. I did warm up the rocks. Like I said, I brushed those, warmed them up, added the gradient filter here, just bumped the exposure just 26, just to kind of darken this a little bit to make sure that there's just dimension and that it's more of a, this is just without it. This is with it, and it kind of just brings your attention to her flowing her dress back and forth. So one thing I did notice here is there's still some dark on her shoulder, and I think that is from the sky actually. So if we bring our brushes up and we click that here, and I'm going to bring this in and kind of just go my minus here and just make sure that I just take that away carefully with no feather on the on the erase brush here. That is going to help. So really it's just taking your time and doing a lot of painting. I mean, here I even have spilling on this, which is probably not a huge deal. But now we're not going to see this line on her shoulder anymore. So I think I actually at one time must have moved this brush because this was definitely not here before. So yeah. So there you have it, you guys. The last thing I did is kind of a little sun kiss thing I do is just add like a little sun flare, but I make sure my flow for that is all the way down to like 40 or even 30, and I just kind of sun kissed the sun here and wherever the highlights would be just to warm them up. So you can see that without this here, it's just that, and undo it. It just brought a little bit more highlights up where the sun would be showing. And that's really it. So without the brushes again, so this is just the Portra and bumped up some exposure, and adding all those brushes did this. So this is not a before and after, this is just before brushes. So this has your preset on it and your exposure and white balance, and then here. So the overall picture, the temperature is a little over 7,100, and tint was +4. Brought the contrast down to like 72. In the HSL, I brought the blues to 0. Bumped up the shadows 36, and that was about it. And then so it's really, the magic is these brushes, and that's it. So here we have your complete before and after. So before, after, and it's done. So that's it. Thanks guys, I hope that helped. Thanks for watching guys, bye. All right, okay.
All the way down.
My cute 3-year-old in the background. Hey, cutie.